Welcome everyone, and thank you for tuning in. This is the account with the report for day 339 on the war in Ukraine. Today has generally been a slow day for news. I do have one article by the Ukrainska Pravda I want to share. All minor updates today are grouped into the usual situation inside Ukraine, with an update on Ukraine seeking 24 Western fighter aircrafts, the occupied territories, including the latest from Mariupol, Russia and Belarus, with a continuation of the Girkin-Prigozhin feud, and international developments. And before we start the report, a look at the flashpoints along the front. Bakhmut. The situation is deteriorating. Ukraine repelled Russian attacks in the north and east of the settlement. Russia is making progress between Krasnahora and Bakhmut. It seems Russian units regularly enter parts of Bakhmut before being pushed back. Repelled attacks were also reported around Ivanivske and Lishchivka. Volodar. Not much to report here, but the same as the other days. Russia continues to attack the settlement. Battles are concentrated on Pavlivka and north of Mikilske. Video and photographic evidence suggests that Russia's attack failed and Russia suffered massive losses. And to start the news segment, the article I want to point out is a continuation to a story by the Great Battles Project published by the Ukrainska Pravda, titled Brigades Come and Go, but we are here all the time. How fighters in a Territorial Defence Force battalion defend their native Bakhmut. If you enjoyed the previous article titled Donbass is Us, We Are Fighting for Our Country, How Territorial Defence Forces Defend Bakhmut, please check out this article as well. Now for a look at the minor news out of Ukraine. According to a statement made by Yuri Inat, spokesman for the Ukrainian Air Force during an interview with El País, Ukraine aims to get 24 fighter jets from its Western allies. Inat said that Ukraine is looking for 2 fighter squadrons of 12 aircraft each, ideally of American F-16s, however French Rafale and Swedish Gripen fighter jets are also considered. The main department of the National Police of Ukraine in Zaporizhzhia reported an attack on an industrial site by Russia using Iskander short-range ballistic missiles. This is noteworthy as Western intelligence estimates that Russia has not much Iskander stock left. The National Police of Ukraine further reported that over 400 bodies found in the deoccupied Kharkiv Oblast remain unidentified. Taras Vysotsky, First Deputy Minister of Agrarian Policy and Food of Ukraine, stated during a meeting that 25% of Ukraine's crop area is currently unusable due to hostilities or occupation. Olympic principles and war fundamentally oppose each other, Zelensky said on Telegram. This comes as a reaction to the IOC's decision to allow athletes from Russia and Belarus to participate in the 2024 Summer Games in Paris. Next up, the latest regarding the situation in the occupied territories. Petro Andriushchenko, an advisor to the Mariupol city mayor, reported several incidents in the occupied city today. Russian trucks carrying personnel, ammunition, and so-called dragon's teeth have been spotted moving through Mariupol again. Additionally, 10 helicopter takeoffs were observed in the city. Furthermore, explosions rang out in Mariupol in the morning, after which blackouts in most of the districts were reported. Russian authorities in Mariupol have also begun demolishing the entire Azovi neighborhood to make space for new elite homes. Natalia Humenyuk, head of the Joint Coordination Press Center of the Defense Forces of the south of Ukraine, said on television that Russia has begun to concentrate forces in the southern sector of the front. However, it is hardly possible to call them military because mainly poorly dressed, poorly equipped, and poorly armed mobilized troops are being redeployed. Moving on to the news updates from Russia and Belarus. Russia currently has 16 warships active in the Black Sea, 3 of them missile carriers, with a total salvo of 20. Igor Girkin, the former Minister of Defense of the DPR, has refused Yevgeny Prigozhin's offer to join the Wagner PMC. Girkin stated while he was willing to discuss the offer, the blatant lies and insults by Prigozhin made cooperation impossible. This is the latest event in the Girkin-Prigozhin spat, which even made it into yesterday's assessment by the Institute for the Study of War. And to wrap up the news segment, the international developments. The US has created a working group to detect corruption in its aid to Ukraine, according to a document from the Office of the Inspector General of the US Agency for International Development, USAID. The document pointed out that the US Congress allocated aid for Ukraine worth more than $113 billion, and it goes through 11 various state bodies and agencies. Despite tough sanctions, microchips from Dutch companies still find their way to Russia. They are delivered there through Chinese intermediaries. The German company Rheinmetall announced it is ready to significantly increase the production of tank and artillery ammunition in order to meet the high demand of Ukraine and the West. Ukraine's foreign ministry will summon Hungary's ambassador to Ukraine over completely unacceptable remarks made by Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban about Ukraine. Orban said that Ukraine was a no man's land and compared it to Afghanistan. Instructors of the Canadian Armed Forces are helping the United Kingdom to train Ukrainian soldiers during Operation Unifier UK. Spanish Minister of Defense Margarita Robles said that the Leopard 2 tanks Spain has committed to sending to Ukraine will arrive in spring. The RAND Corporation, an American research organization, published a report titled Avoiding a Long War about the war between Russia and Ukraine. They believe that neither of the two countries will achieve an absolute victory. And now for the intelligence report segment, starting as usual with the UK Ministry of Defence. Russia highly likely suffered more than 300 casualties in a strike on troop accommodations at Makiivka near Donetsk City on January 1, 2023. We assess that the majority were likely killed or missing rather than wounded. Following the strike, the Russian Ministry of Defense took the rare step of publicly acknowledging it had suffered casualties, claiming 89 killed. Russian officials likely assessed that it was not viable to avoid comment in the face of widespread criticism of Russian commanders over the incident. The difference between the number of casualties Russia acknowledged and the likely true total highlights the pervasive presence of disinformation in Russian public announcements. This typically comes about through a combination of deliberate lying authorized by senior leaders and the communication of inaccurate reports by more junior officials keen to downplay their failings in Russia's blame and sack culture. A look at the latest assessment by the Institute for the Study of War. The researchers explore the possible direction of a new Russian offensive. The most likely direction, according to the Institute, is in the Luhansk Oblast, although it could possibly happen in the Volodya direction as well. A possible attack in the north of Ukraine remains extremely unlikely. An earlier assessment concluded that the limited attacks in the Zaporizhzhia direction by Russia is aimed at dispersing Ukrainian forces and set conditions for an offensive in Luhansk Oblast. Meanwhile, the Institute points out that the Kremlin has started handing out pardons to convicts who took part in Russia's military operation in Ukraine. This could lead to further recruitment of convicts by Wagner. Another point of today's assessment talks about a visual investigation by a Russian opposition outlet confirming Russia has deported children from occupied territories. And finally, the researchers mentioned likely attempts by the Russian military leadership to censor and restrict frontline coverage by military bloggers. And to wrap up the report, the evening update by the General Staff of Ukraine. The danger of enemy air and missile attacks is high throughout the territory of Ukraine. Losing a large number of manpower, the enemy continues offensive operations in the Bakhmut, Avdiivka and Novopavlivka directions. In Kupiansk, Liman, Zaporizhzhia and Kherson, the enemy is defending. The occupiers continue to exert moral, psychological and physical pressure on the local population. For example, workers of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant who did not sign a labor contract with the occupiers were blocked from entering the station, and workers who were forced to sign a contract had their wages cut, citing the fact that the station was not working. The enemy continues to suffer losses. So, in particular, up to 50 wounded occupiers were brought to the city hospital of Tokmak settlement of Zaporizhzhia region in recent days. Most of them, after receiving formal help, are sent back to the front line. And that wraps up today's report. Should you be interested in any of the articles I mentioned, I included links to them in the description as always. Thank you for tuning in and have a great day. You were listening to The Account. Slava Ukraini.